Retrace.
Welcome back to the next part of this Truth and Rhythm episode. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. Also become a member by joining Truth and Rhythm on Patreon, or consider donating at funkinstuff.net. Thank you so much for your interest and support. Enjoy.
And as you said, this one, definitely a lot of hip hop influence here. And
yeah,
how did you guys feel about, or why did you have vocalists or rappers become so much more prominent?
well, we had we had parted ways with our longtime vocalist between those records, between Ruckus and Late for the Future. Farrell had come down with some health issues that made him basically kind of come off the road, and so we were an instrumental. We were kind of back to square one. We were an instrumental band again, and we had grown a lot of love for hip hop, and we didn't really want to just straight up like replace Daryl with another singer. So when it came time to think about the next record, we thought, oh, what about if we just collaborated with a bunch of different vocalists or rappers, and it was something that we'd always we'd had rappers sit in here and there on the road. People had come out, and it was an obvious connection with funk music and rap. So it wasn't too far fetched to be an instrumental band backing up rappers. So it just kind of when we came up, and also at that point we were kind of thinking about records a little more conceptually, and we wanted to not just document what we were doing. We wanted to have records kind of move us forward in our writing and as a band and progress through the creation of a record. So, the idea came up of like, well, why don't we, instead of like finding a new vocalist and freaking everybody out, why don't we just kind of collaborate with a bunch of different vocalists and put out a record like that? And that was a really fun record to make. And that's when we really, to me, started truly taking like the production into our own hands.
So did you personally learn like some other skills in that way?
Yeah. I mean, through the making of the Ruckus record, because Ruckus was officially produced by this guy, Dan the Automator, and he had sent down a couple guys, these guys, the Rondo brothers, to work on the Ruckus record with us. And we had our own studio, and those two guys, Jim Greer and Brandon, they really taught us how to use our studio as a tool to help us create music and record ourselves. So Ben and I absorbed it the most. A lot of the other guys, some people just aren't into the studio. Some people are really into the studio, and it's just, there's musicians that are like that. Some people are like, okay, you got my part, cool, I'm out, I'm gone, and some people are like, okay, you got my part, cool, do you mind if I just sit here for a while and watch, and so Ben and I were those guys. When the day was over, we still like to hang out and kind of work on stuff. So that was the beginning of us from the corner of the block of really kind of diving in and taking the producer role on our own.
And most of those people that came in to do the raps and stuff, did you already have those relationships, or you got people recommended? Or
yeah, it was a little bit of both. I mean, we had Lyrics Born. We had Lyrics Born had opened up for us on tour before that record. I think maybe a year or two before that record, and he would sit in with us, and he might have been really one of the biggest influences on us thinking of ourselves in that kind of a way. And so Lyrics Born, he kind of helped us with some of the connections. He's a Bay Area rapper, and he helped us connect with a lot of the Bay Area rappers that are on there, which are like Boots Riley and Gift of Gab. And then we just kind of cold called people. Like, we really loved Ladybug from Diggable Planets. Always loved her voice, and of course we were big fans of Jurassic 5. So we just kind of cold called Charlie Tuna, and he was down. And we really didn't have a lot of connections before that record, but it gave us some confidence to be able to do that and to cold call people, which led us to cold calling, Macy Gray. It's like all these lessons, like, we used to think, oh, you'd have to know the people, you have to have a relationship, and it's like, yeah, sometimes you can make those relationships happen.
More credit to you for doing that. This record, tracks that I really like on it or include, I like them all, but
it's all good. I love to hear your choice. It's interesting what people like. I love to hear it.
Yeah, some of my favorites are Bounce Baby, Hustle Up, and Square Biz, and Tough Love, which is the one that's sort of like a throwback, but that one's just instrumental fire, I would say.
Yeah, that's just and that one, I believe Tough Love's, with Trombone Shorty's on that one, and cool variety, and that you like Hustle Up. That's cool too, because that was a, it's kind of a departure for us. Boots Riley was a very aggressive rapper, and it was just a different song for us to put out. So it's cool that it's a lot of variety there, because you like two instrumentals. Square Biz is the one with Ladybug, and that's kind of a little more of your typical Galactic funk. But yeah, I like that you like the variety. It's cool.
Yeah, I gravitated to rap also because that's where funk went. So
right.
I wasn't. First off, I think if you're into
LA,
funk from
right? And LA had a big hip hop scene coming out,
Right. Yeah. So I was always in Ice Cube and all those kinds of Dr. Dre and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But even New York too, the Run DMCs and the Public Enemies, and I think, Robert, that if you embrace funk music to begin with, I think that signifies you're probably open to like some different things, because it's such a free form,
It is. Similar to how jam band has a lot of different varieties within it, funk music does too. There's like uber tight funk, like down to the T, and the kind of Tower Power kind of thing, or there's just like the loose and dirty kind of New Orleans funk, and there's a lot of variety within it. And I think that the thread that kind of brings it all together is just the way it makes you feel. And that it kind of either makes your head kind of bob, or just kind of makes you do this, like, this little thing, like maybe I kind of probably look like a dad doing it now or something. Just kind of like
call it the funk face. Yeah,
do a little dance or something, that because I don't think anybody's really truly been able to define what funk is. I think it's a feeling that is it's kind of hard to really define in words, but I think everybody knows the feeling.
That's been to its credit and to its disadvantage, that it's so hard to define. It's something that's so special that because it's not easy to pigeonhole, it's been, kicked to the curb in some ways, and not, given as broad of attention as, something like soul or jazz or whatever.
Totally.
So it's kind of a double-edged sword, I think.
It is, but it's amazing. You hear funk in so much current music too, even on the radio and stuff. Is this like it's very prevalent in music, I think.
Yeah,
I just gravitate towards the tunes I hear that are funky,
Well, I got a kick out of it because when I first started going to shows and stuff, I was like the only white face I would see. And then, in the late 80s or 90s, I started hearing funk in like TV commercials and jingles, and I'm like, Wow, it's gone mainstream or something. This is weird.
Yeah. So you were going to see shows like what were you like? What was some of your earliest funk shows?
Oh man, I saw Bootsy at the Forum at his peak popularity, and
Sick.
17,000 screaming Funketeers.
Wow. Because there was a point where Bootsy was bigger than P Funk, right?
Yeah, this was like his peak, 78.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. Super cool. Nice.
and I saw P-Funk, Parliament Funkadelic, do what they were calling the AntiTour in 1978 at a place called the Starwood in Hollywood, which was like a 300 capacity club, and it was unannounced. And I got in there, and they did like a 3 or 4 hour show. Mind blowing.
Wow. That was the heyday, man. That must have been killer.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was incredible.
I'm jealous.
Square Biz I thought should have been a hit.
Ah, thanks.
I don't know if you guys ever pushed singles much or thought about it, but
I mean, we've been on record labels and it's just like they would give a little bit of an effort. I'm trying to think what was probably the single off of that record. It was probably the Lyrics Born song, What You Need, that, they tried to push on in some sorts of ways, but we were never a band that record labels put a lot of money behind. There wasn't there wasn't a lot of huge belief like that this band could be gigantic, so they kind of gauge like, okay, we think they could probably sell this many records, so we'll give them this much of an effort.
yeah. Well, I have these here too. Remember these?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, Robert, how would you describe the Galactic stage show to somebody that had never seen it, earlier on, and then how did that progress?
That's a good question too. Early on we had Theral the Houseman to clue it, and he was, 20 years older than us. He was like a seasoned soul singer. He would come out in his suits, 7-button suit. He came, he wanted us all to dress like the Temptations, and he came from a different era, but he had some showness to him, like none of us really have any sort of showness to us at all, and it was, I think it was the thing that really separated us from some of the other bands that were starting to get into the funk resurgence that was happening, is that we had this singer that was, from that era, and he was real, and he was, about as real as it got. I mean, he was a real New Orleans dude, and had a voice that harkened to a different era, and so that kind of built the foundation of our live performances. We would kind of start with a couple instrumental songs, and we'd bring out the featured vocalist, Theral, and then we go back and do some instrumental tunes. We bring them back, and that's kind of been our formula with all vocalists that we've worked with since then. I mean, even when we brought out the rappers, or I mean, we've toured with Corey Glover from Living Color and Cyril Neville from the Neville Brothers, and David Shaw from the Revivalists. We've toured, and Macy Gray. I mean, we've had an amazing array of different kinds of vocalists, but we've always kind of wanted to still retain a little bit of our instrumental side, because we love it, and we know that we have a fan base that likes that side of it. I mean, I have people that say like, oh, my favorite part is your instrumental stuff. So, but then there's people that like do not hear instrumental music as music. There's like some people that are like, wait, there's no vocals? Like, that's a song? Like, it's just so amazing that people can be that close-minded in some ways. Like, they need that vocals. If it doesn't have vocals, then it's jazz. There's just nothing else, and it's jazz, and it's just, I don't want to hear it. So, we've always enjoyed writing and performing instrumental and vocal music. They both have a deep place in our hearts, so we've just kind of always tried to create a show that kind of weaves through instrumental and vocal songs throughout the set. And so knowing that, that helps, I think, for the person that's never seen us, because they might just be like, well, where's the vocalist, or when is that coming out, or what? Oh, wow, they're here and they're leaving. And so it's different, because most bands are all about the vocalist. And if you were to switch the vocalist in a band, like, Led Zeppelin, okay, we're not touring with Robert Plant anymore. It's like the band would be over. I mean, it wouldn't be the same band. Rolling Stones, like, oh, we're going to get a new singer. We're touring with, a different guy. It usually is the death of a band. And, but we've strangely enough been able to make a career out of constantly collaborating and changing vocalists, and kind of putting the focus around the rhythm section. Very different, unique. Maybe it's been a thing that's held us back, but it's kind of just who we are.
And you've, also just such variety in it, like you said, the old school kind of guy, the rappers, and then, more recently when I saw you guys at the, I don't know if you can see this, the One Nation tour a couple of years ago out here in North Carolina, you guys had the female vocalist.
Yeah, Erica Falls was in this. Yeah, I remember that. That was at that like small. It was like an amphitheater, right?
Yeah,
that was a nice night. That was
Yeah.
awesome. And yeah, I remember that night well. I remember going out in the crowd. It was funny because that we were on that tour for about 6 weeks, and I never got tired of hearing P-Funk. Like, I would go out pretty much every night into the crowd and go watch them. And they played, pretty similar set, but it was just so good. And it's really interesting with those guys, like I mean, when they go into some of those old cuts and stuff, it's just like, oh man, no one can play it like them, no one, even though it's not even really probably any of the original guys, it still just has the George Clinton kind of, at the reins and directing everybody. And I thought he sounded actually better than I'd heard him in years. So I was really impressed. I thought he had a lot of energy on that tour. And that was such a fun tour. We had a great time. It was amazing.
Yeah, the biggest downside of that was there was a curfew at that venue.
Oh, right. And that was an odd thing too, that P-Funk, they decided, they wanted to bring out 4 bands. It was either 3 or 4 bands, and I'm like, well, P-Funk alone is pretty much can do a whole night on their, but they wanted to present, more music and stuff like that. And I know that they didn't get to play as long as they normally would.
That was the first funk show I brought my son to, 15, might have been 14 then. And so his first funk concert exposure included Galactic.
Nice. I'll take it. Thank you.
So, you mentioned about George and P-Funk and how they sound. I agree with you. I've seen them, throughout the decades and years, and the 90s at times was a little rough.
Yeah, I agree. There was, I think they were all just a lot of drug use going on, and it was just kind of, he wasn't, I don't think, fully at the realm of a leadership, and I mean, just to be honest, yeah, I agree. And that was when I first kind of started seeing them, was in the 90s. I didn't really get to see them too much before then. And, I mean, I thought they sounded really good in the beginning of the 90s. And then I think there was a rough patch in the late 90s. And then I was really happy when we went back out on tour with them, and that they sounded so good.
Yeah, and you mentioned about, bass players that really hold it down but aren't that flashy. Lige Curry, who does their bass playing now, I mean, that's the kind of guy he is.
Oh, he is so good. He is, oh my God. If I wasn't in the crowd, I was behind his bass amp and just like checking him out. Oh my God. It's such a cool guy. And he actually, you're right. He's one of the original dudes. He didn't record so much with them, but he's been touring with them for decades. I mean, he was I always called him the Sheik, because he used to wear more of a chic Arab outfit.
Right.
Back in the day. And it took me a minute, because when we first date or two when we were on tour, I was like, wait, oh, that's the same guy that I would see in the '90s, and yeah, he sticks to that groove, and it's just so good. Such a great player.
Yeah. He was actually at that, I think he was at that show I mentioned from 78 or 9 that was at that small venue. That was like when he first started with them.
Gosh, I mean, that's 40, yeah, that's a long time. Awesome.
Yeah. So you guys really started to change it up with, the successive albums from where we were last talking with Yakame, or however you say that.
Yakame.
Yakame.
Yeah, that's like a New Orleans, kind of a like it's this soup that they make here in New Orleans, and it's made with like kind of ramen noodles, and then a bunch of kind of like a gumbo, but more of a Asian gumbo, and so it's called Yakame, and we thought, that was kind of our New Orleans love letter album. We collaborated with all New Orleans artists on that record, and we thought that it was in some way it was a gumbo, but gumbo just sounded too overused to us as a title. It's like anytime a writer says like, "Oh, you guys are a musical gumbo," we all kind of roll our eyes because it's too easy, to say that. So we thought that the title Yakame, in a way, had the same meaning, and that it was our musical Yakame of collaborations with New Orleans artists.
Your stew, yeah.
Yeah, it was our stew, exactly. There you go.
That one was definitely more soul, less hip hop, and I really like Dark Water and Heart of Steel.
Yeah, that was. I mean, both of those tunes. It's funny because Dark Water is one we didn't really play. That was one that really worked on the record and didn't translate to the live setting so well. It just kind of has like, I don't know. It just didn't really fly live as well. But I love that recording of that song. And then Heart of Steel has become a staple in our show, and that was kind of one of our bigger songs. And to be able to collaborate with Irma Thomas, whoa, that was awesome.
Yeah. So did you already know her, or somebody connected you guys?
We connected. We just again, it was a cold call. We really didn't know her, and truthfully, one of the biggest feathers in our caps is that Irma Thomas performed that song in her live set with her band. So we wrote a song that became one of Irma Thomas's staples in her show. And to me, she has so many classic songs. She's been around for decades. She's, queen of the soul, New Orleans, New Orleans queen of the soul, and to have her take a song that we wrote and now become one of her staples it's amazing to me that she liked the song that much. She always said, it's funny, I saw her the other day and she's like, we got to write another one of those songs. You all make me sound so young.
Yeah, that's a nice validation right there.
Oh man, I mean, it's like sometimes you're wondering, oh, okay, we got the singer in here, and we hand her the lyrics and the melody, and she's kind of like, all right, I'll just do this, whatever, these guys, whatever. But to know that she really enjoyed the song that much, really meant a lot to us.
Very cool. And Carnival,
Electricos,
yeah. So that was the next one. Very tribal, bright, brassy, and obviously, Mardi Gras sort of tribute.
Exactly. Yeah. And trying to, connect the dots between Brazil, Mardi Gras, and Louisiana's Mardi Gras, and trying to stick to the concept, the whole time of really either lyrically or musically trying to connect those dots.
And Into the Deep kind of brought you more back, I would say, closer to like the Ruckus type of deal.
Yeah, very observant. Yeah, I think we had gone so far into the loops and hip hop and stuff like that and it was just like we wanted to make a record that felt a little more like us playing in the room together again. So that was somewhat of the cohesive concept behind that record for us. And we also really hadn't played or written any ballads or anything like that before. I guess maybe we had gotten older. Ballad was like a bad word to us in our 20s, And then the song, Into the Deep, which we wrote with David Choff and the Revivalists, and Macy Gray performed, was kind of a departure for us. And then also Does It Make a Difference with Mavis Staples. We hadn't really written music like that before. And strangely enough, I mean, on our Spotify, those tunes are some of our more, in our top 5 songs that people listen to. So it's become, I don't know if we're known for that now, like, kind of a ballady female vocalist song, but we have of our top 5 songs on Spotify, it's Into the Deep, it Doesn't Make a Difference, and Going Straight Crazy, which is also, kind of a slower, mellower song.
Mavis, one of my all-time favorite.
She was such a joy to work with. Ben and I flew up to Chicago, recorded her, and just such a professional. Came in with a great attitude, wanted to just get the song right. She could have easily been like, all right, guys, cool, that's all you get, and she just wanted to make sure we were happy. And just beautiful hugs and kisses all around. And we did have a connection with her. She had actually sat in with the band in New York City, maybe 2003 or 4 or something like that. And we had run into her over the years. I remember running into her in Australia at an airport. Always just really sweet and amazing. And we obviously big fans of hers and the Staple Singers and stuff. So, when it came time and we had that song in the, written, and we were trying to figure out who was going to sing it, she was at the top of our list. And luckily she said, yeah.
Wow. On that record, I really love Long Live the Born,
yeah.
Born, yeah. Long Live the Born, which is...
it's Lake Borgne is a lake. Yeah, it's Lake Pontchartrain, and then there's Lake Borgne. So it was originally Long Live the Born, and then we had the idea of just spelling it Born as the lake, Stupid. When you're coming up with instrumental titles is like, you could be whatever you want.
Well, you had to do that just so I would mispronounce it, I dig Dalla Diva, which is a jam, and Domino.
Oh, yeah, I love Domino, too. Ryan Mount Blue, such a great singer, great songwriter as well. He's really, I love that tune. I thought that came out really cool. Nice.
Absolutely.
Good choice.
And then since then, you had the Already Ready Already, which was more of an EP, I would say.
Yeah, it was shorter. And yeah, I mean, you could say it was an EP. It was officially enough to be an LP, but it was, that was also a really fun record to work on, and kind of the combo of all the things that we had been doing, and we just kind of wanted to, and constantly are always trying to further our songwriting.
I kind of like going straight crazy.
Yeah, that was a great. I mean, when we hooked up with Princess Shaw, she had recently moved to New Orleans, and she has actually this Netflix documentary about her, and she's an amazing story, and she's quite she just has this thing in her voice that's so unique, and yeah, she just kind of crushed that one in my mind. And we actually have another song with her that's in the can that we've been kind of holding back releasing music during COVID, because sadly enough, it's like you kind of want to use releases to kind of further your touring and stuff like that. So we have about half of a record in the can, and we're hoping to release it before we start touring again in the summer and fall.
Cool. I'll definitely look forward to that. Just another thing to hate about the pandemic is holding back Galactic tunes.
I know. I feel weird about it, but it's especially in the height of the pandemic's at a height right now still, but in May and June, it just seemed like everybody was so focused on so much other stuff, if it be politics or the coronavirus, and we just didn't want to release something and then either not be able to tour behind it for what would have been a year or so, and or it getting lost in the shuffle. A way that you kind of bring attention back to your record is being on tour and people writing about it and rolling through a city and all that. So business wise, it just didn't seem to really make sense to really release any music throughout that time, but it's coming.
Excellent. Speaking of business, and I have this here, which is kind of related.
Oh, right. That was a record between Late for the Future and Ruckus, right? Yeah.
So Salida Tipitinas, which obviously you guys had played there so many times, and then you ended up owning it. So why and what's going on with that?
I've been asking myself why a lot this year. It's a club, we've loved, New Orleans loves. It is like the best club in New Orleans in our minds, even before we bought it. It's just it has such a history. It's an iconic venue worldwide. But the owner at that time, it just was starting to kind of fall, and he was in some financial problems. He was kind of not. We knew it was becoming apparent when he couldn't pay us after our New Year's Eve performance, which was a sold out New Year's Eve performance, but there was no money to pay us. So we were like, oh, we saw the writing on the walls, like something's going on with this guy and the club. So that kind of opened up a conversation with the owner, and the conversation took about 10, 11 months for it to fully come around to where he would sell it to us. So, and truthfully, we started the conversation without really even knowing if we could buy it. We didn't know if we could convince a bank to lend us the money. A band is not the easiest sell to a bank, like, hey, lend a band a bunch of money to buy a nightclub. It doesn't sound
that's where you pull out that Tulane degree.
It is, yes. That's where you and they met us. We met with a lot of bankers, and we had to kind of show that we were worthy. And I think Stanton, in one of our meetings with the SBA, who ended up being the banks that lent us the money, and I thought it was a great analogy. I love analogies, as you can probably tell through this conversation. But he said, you could look at Galactic as that we have been on basically a board of directors for 25 plus years together. And who would you rather lend money to? A group of people who have never worked together and who could combust after owning a club or a business together after a year, and they figure out they have a lot of differences and they can't work together? Or would you rather lend it to, a group of 5 guys who have, through thick and thin, stuck it out together and been able to figure out and work through our differences, and we have our flow, and we know how to move forward and how to get stuff done. So I thought that was a really poignant statement that Stanton made, and it really struck a chord with me. And it is true. Like you hear this all the time with business partners that don't see eye to eye, and they figure it out after they've actually purchased a restaurant or whatever it is, or started a business. So even Facebook, stuff like that. You have the founders that didn't really see eye to eye and all that. So we luckily convinced the SBA that they should lend some money to a band in New Orleans, and everything was going pretty good, until March 2020, and then it became the big, like, oh my God, did we just make the worst decision in our lives? And it was a really dark time. I mean, it was really losing a lot of sleep, and not only were we a band that couldn't tour, we now owned a club that wasn't open. So it was tough, and it still is tough. I mean, it hasn't been easy, but we've been able to try to figure out a couple different ways to use the club, either creating virtual performances, and throughout this year we've all really seen how much Tipitinas means to people, and the outpouring of support has been extremely heartwarming for us. And now, Congress passed the Save Our Stages Act, and hopefully we will be able to participate in that, and things are looking a lot better for us in that respect.
Have you tried anything there with social distancing, or do you think that's in the near future? Or?
I mean, as soon as we can, but yeah, we can't in New Orleans. You can't. You still can't. Like, bars aren't open, and there's no live music indoors, and there hasn't been yet. So, we will be cautiously moving forward when we can, but we want to do it in a responsible way, and we do not want to be known as the club that made moves too quickly. And we were actually one of the first clubs in New Orleans to close down at the beginning of the pandemic, and we're happy we did that. I mean, it was tough. It was a tough decision to make. We had some shows that would have done well, but we just thought that the responsible thing to do was to get ahead of it and not create any sort of spreader events.
Yeah, well, good for you guys. Last year, I guess the Mardi Gras kind of slipped in right before.
Yeah, and it became known as like kind of a super spreader event. Actually, Galactic's last performance, like at a club, and it was Mardi Gras night, and that was our last show. And we were about to head out on our West Coast tour, 25th anniversary tour, and in mid-March. And literally the morning before we were leaving, we got a call from our manager, and he's like, "We're turning the bus around. You guys stay at home. It's not worth it. Every club is about to close down." And we were like, "Really? Okay, yeah." I mean, we had already kind of started talking about closing down Tipitinas, but we didn't think it was going to last for so long. And then it was obviously the right decision, and all the clubs did end up closing.
Yeah. Well, I think, when this starts to rebound, it's going to be tremendous. I think, like, you guys have new music. I think, everyone who's creative has been, doing something to keep busy, and that we're going to see this outpouring of, terrific music and art and all that comes out of it as the rebound happens. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there's a lot of pent up creative energy out there, and I do too hope on both sides, as a touring band, as a club owner, that there is, I saw it during Katrina, like sometimes to really appreciate what you have, sometimes having it taken away is the way to make that apparent. And I think Katrina did that for a lot of New Orleanians, people from New Orleans.
Even you have trouble saying it.
Yeah, New Orleanians is it's a hard word to say. So, I mean, I think people from New Orleans really, we thought we might lose our city in that during that hurricane, and it just gave a strong appreciation for I think everybody here, and I hope that Corona, COVID's kind of done the same thing for live music. I think I'm excited to get back to that feeling again.
Absolutely. So as we look to wrap this up, is there anything that you're especially proud of accomplishing in your career?
I mean, getting through and you know, trying to get through this Corona thing has I've had to put on a lot of different hats, and it's been very. I'm proud of us, and I'm proud of the band, and I'm proud of the way that we've stayed together throughout this time. It hasn't been easy, and you know, we're still not through it, but we've all tried to become very creative in different ways to really try to keep Tipitinas going and the band going, and I'm proud of what we've done so far. And I know we have a long road to still go, but we've really all taken it in stride and handled it as a group in a very good way. A lot like Stanton said, like the board of directors kind of thing. I think we've really shown that we do know how to work together and how to make progress together as a band.
When you guys are in the studio, who's sort of like the alpha?
Probably me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of the band leader, you could say. It's not, you know, I'm always the one that's in the sound check. That's like, okay, guys, we got to do this tune, or we got to, you know, like I'm slightly a control freak. So I think I just have over the years become that guy in the band, and you know, I make a lot of decisions for the band, and they've grown to trust my decisions over the years. And it's funny, you know, like we have this like weekly Friday call that we do 11 a.m. on Fridays. And last Friday I had a studio session and I couldn't make it. And you know, there's other guys have not been able to make the calls over the last few months. But when I couldn't make one, the guys were like, well, then there's no reason to have a call if you're not going to be on it. So, you know, it's like, it was kind of nice. You know, they were like, well, let's just wait till you can do the call. Cause it's like, you know, we can't really do anything without you. So it was nice. And they've recognized a lot over the years, the extra work and the love that I put into the band and stuff like that. And, you know, I do a lot of the songwriting and producing now and stuff like that as well. So, it's nice. They've just all kind of acknowledged that I put in, you know, some extra work in doing all this stuff.
Is there anyone out there that you still hope that you get to work with?
Yeah, Robert Plant. That'd be cool.
Yeah, have you met him?
No, but have a couple degrees of separation. Met him, you know? Yeah, not fully, but I mean closely. You know, I know somebody that's met him. Yeah, I mean, that would be amazing to be able to work with him. I think that would be, you know, I love like what he's done post Led Zeppelin as well. You know, I mean, I love the Diane Krall stuff he's done. I think he's just really cool, really versatile guy, and iconic voice for sure.
Yeah, well, he didn't sit still. He definitely tried to do other stuff, you know, also. So, but hey, there's another cold call for you.
Keep the cold calls going. Right.
All right. Hey, well, how can everyone keep up with Galactic and maybe yourself as well?
Yeah. You know, I mean, we are pretty active on Instagram and Facebooks and Twitter. I have just my own, really, my Facebook. And, you know, we're constantly posting all the new stuff we're doing as a band and through Tipitina. So, yeah, just keep up with us there. We also have a website, galacticfunk.com. And hopefully we'll be updating it with some tour dates at some point.
Yeah, tour dates that don't have to be rescheduled.
Yeah, some real tour dates. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Robert, thank you so much for spending this time. Thank you for all the great music through the years, and I wish you nothing but further continued success.
Thank you, Scott. It was really nice to talk to you, man. Really nice to meet you. Thanks for being such a long-time supporter.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Truth in Rhythm. A big thank you goes out to our guest as well as to you, the viewer and listener. Also, much gratitude to Pleasure for supplying the show's funky opening and closing music. As a reminder, you can always access the complete list of linked shows by episode at funkandstuff.net. I urge you to support this program and receive the extra benefits along with that by subscribing to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube and sharing it with funk, R&B, and jazz lovers, joining Truth and Rhythm's membership program at Patreon, submitting a donation at funkandstuff.net, buying Everything is on the One, the First Guide to Funk book at Amazon, shopping at the Funky Things store for cool merchandise at funkandstuff.net, and linking through funkandstuff.net for all of your Amazon purchases. In addition, if you're an artist or anyone seeking proven, results-oriented professional marketing, PR, writing, or editing consultation or production, check out the media services section at funkandstuff.net. Also, I encourage you to drop me a line at scottg@funkandstuff.net. I love the feedback, suggestions, guest requests, appearance and sponsorship inquiries, and just talking about my favorite subject, groove-based music. For now, and as always, this is Scott Dr. GX Goldfine saying, keep on vibing to the rhythm of the one.